its exports to America and the rest of the world. In peacetime, the United States once again banned the cultivation of hemp and cannabis, but at the same time imported millions of tons of hemp during the post-war economic boom to supply its industries.
For this is the Port of New York, a sprawling pattern of activity covering more than 1,500 square miles. Its 650-mile waterfront, an ever-changing mirror reflecting the work of the world and its needs and tastes. Grain from Canada, and fish from Portugal and Norway, tires from Akron, and hemp from India.
During the post-war years in France, hemp growing and processing went through a revitalized industrial revolution.
What is interesting to underline is the fact that in France hemp culture went on in spite of American prohibition. While prohibiting marijuana in the USA, they prohibited hemp too, and so you couldn't grow it anymore. In France hemp growing went on. France was a very rural nation at that time, and remained so until the 50s. They continue to cultivate hemp there today. What happened was that synthetic fibers went on to become a huge development. And even in France, in a country where hemp growing was still legal, hemp began to widely decline, until the hemp textile industry finally died at the end of the 60s.
In the 60s, hippies began a worldwide movement calling for the legalization of cannabis. English and American rock stars encouraged people to smoke it. The Beatles, led by John Lennon, turned England on by singing openly pro-cannabis lyrics.
Revolution 69, I was there, it felt fine. Paris riot 68, dropped the tab and got there late.
The Rolling Stones' preference for Moroccan hashish brought them more fans, offering an alternative to the Beatles and to the fashion for things Indian. Hippies then decided to hit the road for Morocco.
Do you see the fields over there on the mountain? At this time of year you can't find any other plant growing there, because this is the only crop that grows here. Can you see how easily it grows? You can find it even in front of the hotel. I think if these people had to choose a symbol, it would definitely be the hashish flower. I think they grow here at least 10 tons of hashish a year, so there must be other people than hippies who buy it. In Jamaica, the Rastafarian religion advocated smoking cannabis. They called it ganja.
Herb is the sacrament of the Rastafari Church, and basically through studying the Bible, we understand that it's there for the healing of the nation. In other words, it can nourish the mind just as food nourishes the body. It's like a key that can open certain aspects of your mind, and the brain needs feeding just as the rest of your body does. But for me personally, it seems to tune you into a certain wavelength that you can't reach without it. Although I do understand that through certain meditations one can achieve these heights without smoking herb or taking any other drugs. But in the 20th century, I personally don't have the time, so it's like a shortcut to get to this place to help you be creative. And another thing I find really interesting about weed is how through the smoking of it or the trying to acquire it, it brings together people of different classes, backgrounds, cultures. And in bringing those people together, there's an exchange of ideas, and through that exchange, other things happen.
At the same time, cannabis was legalized in Holland. That's how Ben Dronkers was able to become the first legal producer of marijuana to become a millionaire.
Here we find different varieties that me and my colleagues, we tested out by once in a while looking at the plants and try them out. In that sense, it's a wall where people can always look and go back to and say this variety had a certain smell or a certain aroma. Quality is very important, and it's the most important factor where we look at. Always people think also about quantities of material you can harvest, and of course it's very difficult to have a balance. You find plants with very large big buds, and you find plants with smaller buds, but even the plants like this that have a very small bud is one of our basic plants we have for the breeding of many of the strong varieties that you can see on this side. That means that some of the strengths and some of the important potency we always try to bring back in one variety, and that is the variety that people buy in the shop. And that is the importance of good seed. Is like any farmer could know that that's the start, and then you end up with some good materials. The Sensi Seed Bank grows the best marijuana seeds in the world, I think, for many years. Also, we want to make the best hemp seeds from the world, and we're working very hard on that. For that, we made a new company that's called Hempflex, and Hempflex produced in the north of Holland on this moment last year 140 hectares of hemp, and coming year we want to go to 1,500 hectares. That is the minimum we want to do, and for sure later on we will have to do more. From that material we have produced last year, we're producing on this moment just the raw fiber and the wood materials. It comes out like that. And from the wood we have the plan to make cat litter, and actually the same things like people want to do in England. It's beautiful wood you can press from it, and also some composites like this pressed from fiber and wood. And very interesting, what I like, one of the things I like myself the most is the isolation material. It smells good, you can make it fireproof, and it's much better than all the glass fiber that is all in these living rooms out there. So hemp is the future.
Hemp growing depends directly on contracts. We have to sign first a contract with an industrial society through our Hemp Producers Federation. At this point it becomes possible to grow hemp. Hemp sowing is made each year around May, and you harvest it around the beginning of September. In Le Mans in France, they produce hemp seeds which contains a very low toxical agents level. Hemp legalization is very precise and obliges producers to use varieties which have been tested and contain no drug. They must have not only a strong agricultural potential, but a very low THC rate too. Hemp has a great industrial future. According to the tests we have made and the hemp uses we have developed, you can see that hemp adapted well to a lot of industrial uses, well, such as paper, also textile. Hemp textile has been made since the last century, up to the beginning of now the 20th century, and today we start to develop this sector again, and we hope to reach soon a top level. As far as other industrial uses are concerned, we have now a lot of French and foreign demands to test this material. Here, for example, amongst others, for hemp industrial use, a German asked us to test and incorporate hemp in the braking disc manufacturing process, because it's very resistant and non-toxic at all. Non-toxic for human beings. Hemp renewal has drawn the attention of the American Cannabis Bible and magazine High Times, who sent their intrepid journalist